I don't agree.
Hey everyone, welcome to Preamp, new name for our podcast, but we're here to have some fun, talk about some albums. And yeah, we got another album for this week. We're going to be talking about Hellfire by Black Midi.
Yeah,
So
And this is the album that you chose, Sim.
yeah, yeah.
yeah. Good
I
for your thoughts.
I picked this album because I mean, like partially because it's from the UK. I end up I end up connecting with a lot of music from the UK because I've grown up with a lot of the contemporaries, especially. Um, so when like you look at the modern music scene in the UK, it's very much just inspired by older things from the UK, as opposed to like the US, where you can see like the punk scene is still harkening back to things from the UK, things from sometimes Japan, things sometimes from all over the world. It's just
Mhm.
I end up connecting with it more because I've got this more close relationship with it, and especially with Black Midi, with the scene that they came from. They came out of Brixton in the south of London, and I actually used to spend a lot of time there. I used to go to some gigs there, went to a few events there when I was in university in London. Um,
Oh.
I didn't end up seeing them, but I know they came out of the they played a lot at the Windmill with Black Country New Road, who both
Oh.
they both came out of the same place in South London. But I chose this album because I thought it's a really interesting sounding album, and I wanted to see what you guys thought of it. It's a good excuse to get you guys to listen to something that you might not have spent much time with.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, it definitely was some good time listening to something that I normally um wouldn't listen to. Yeah. Like I had known about Black Midi for a bit. I had listened to their first album, Schlagenheim.
Mm.
Love saying that.
Yeah,
Which
it's a
was
great
more
album.
of
It's a great word.
it's a good album too. More in the vein of like your kind of noisy like post punk.
Yeah, I
Uh,
was thinking the same thing. Very post punk.
Mhm.
yeah,
Yeah.
more on my general like milieu of what I listen to.
Mm.
So I was like, okay, well I like that, and so it's the same band doing something a lot more jazzy, a lot
Yeah.
more experimental, a lot more prog inspired. So I was like, okay, I kind of have to like, check it
Mhm.
out because yeah, like I have my predisposition towards prog, which I've made known before, but I really did end up enjoying it more. I think when if we had just done the episode when we were originally going to, if we didn't have those technical difficulties, I don't think I would have had um a good kind of grasp on the album. So I was kind of glad we had some more time to kind of
Yeah.
work it over.
Because like I
Yeah.
know that like there's definitely a lot of that jazz influence that I appreciate in it a lot. But like I've obviously listened to Schlagenheim and Cavalcade and the Caval covers EP as well. Um they do a great cover of Love Story by Taylor Swift and 21st Century Schizoid Man, where they have Jody Greek
Yeah.
playing like Dr. Frankenstein as if the 21st Century Schizoid Man is something he's created. It's an interesting twist.
Yeah, that's
um,
a great cover.
yeah. Um, I mean, that's a hard song to cover, so they did well on that. But then coming
Oh
into
yeah.
this, I was actually recommended Cavalcade by a friend. So when this came out, I was already listening to Cavalcade. It was around the time that this came out. That I listened to it. So I went back and listened to Schlagenheim actually after I listened to Hellfire. Um, and my favorite song from that, I think, based on your sensibilities, you might not agree, Humphead, but my favorite song on that is BM.
No, I,
Uh,
I I love that one. Yeah.
Oh, I love it. Oh god, there's just the whole
Yeah,
like
it's great.
the way he's talking about it as if he's like commentating over a runway walk, and he's like, and she does not care at all because she moves with a purpose.
Yeah, it's good you say that because one thing through and through like all of Black Midi's discography is Jordy Creep is like such like a storyteller and
Yeah, he's
just
so good at
conjures
it.
such like an
Mhm.
attitude or an atmosphere.
Mm,
That's especially apparent on this album
yeah,
too. With all the old world, imagery and themes that he pulls from. It's like
yeah. It's
it's like he just really, really moved into that really effectively.
it seems consistently like it's set in that kind of like 1920s, maybe earlier, like or late 1800s kind of era. Yeah.
it bounces
Yeah.
around somewhere because on one hand you're talking about like ship captains and stuff,
Mm.
and then it's like you're talking about like a televised or maybe like a radio
Yeah, like the
broadcasted boxing match. So it's like it's not anachronistic. It's just sort of like a general band, you know, of
I guess you're because like it's simultaneously Sugar Zoo's like 2163 the year that they say,
oh,
um,
that is true, yeah.
and yet it's still kind of like this kind of radio broadcast almost, yeah. And then you got 27 Questions, which talks about a guy whose will is being publicly read who was a star before the war. So it's like,
Mm,
yeah, you get like, and the ship captain in Eat Men Eat is like, I think
hmm
that's based on like a real thing that happened in the late 1800s,
Mm.
early 1900s.
Right, right. And even
Yeah,
on when
kind
it like oh, go ahead. Sure.
of. It kind of gives vibes of like retro future, like kind of hell world dystopia vibes
I think the word
to
we're all
me.
looking for is gothic.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like yeah, like gothic, yeah, like its own kind of gothic,
Mm.
like gothic in the style of like Review Bra, you know? Maybe like because
Yeah.
yeah, it's not gothic like The Cure, but it's gothic like the kind of harkening back to the past and all these like strong themes that just kind of like hit you like a wave, you know? Like that kind of like, you know, imagery and
mm.
whatnot. Yeah, so this yeah, it's a really interesting album for that. That too, like the like yeah, because there's so many ways that I kept going like yeah, like I saw what he was trying to like work with. Him and is Cameron is the other
Cameron Picton,
vocalist
yeah,
on
the other vocalist,
Picton,
yeah.
yeah. Because they keep like doing all these kind of like old world like moral themes too, and like the kind of like
Mhm.
little inclusions of like the morality, like the farmhand being tricked by the devil, you know, and he's explicitly says that he's like, you know, you red skin and horns and whatnot. Like it feels like something that was out of like you know, like an early, you know, 20th century, you know, cartoon that
It's
was
very
produced by
pulpy,
like
yeah.
yeah, very
Yeah.
pulpy. Um and yeah, that was a very strong theme throughout, but it still feels like a modern record, obviously.
Mm.
Because it just kind of feels like it's a vehicle for them to like well one it doesn't feel like it's primarily like a commentary album for me at least. I don't know if either of you, you know, feel the same way. I
Yeah.
think they're just having fun and they're slipping things in when they can, you know,
Mm.
to talk about stuff. Because I think that they're just trying to just be really creative.
Hmm. Yeah, I definitely feel like, and it feels pretty consistently like there's elements of it that are kind of grasping at like a bigger picture, like more of a commentary thing.
I
They
think,
are
yeah.
obviously having fun too, but like so many of the songs, like not so much on like Sugar Zoo, but like Eat Men Eat, Welcome to Hell.
Yeah,
Um,
still plenty of commentary too.
yeah,
Yeah.
like
Then you have a
Their
song
I
about
views bleed
definitely,
over into the
race, you
creativity at
know.
least, yeah.
Yeah.
yeah, it's very much, yeah, creative. It's definitely a big part of what they're going for. I think with this album,
Mhm.
obviously. But yeah, there's a lot like more substance to it than I had kind of, or not substance, but more. It's saying more than I was expecting it would.
Yeah.
Um, because I knew, roughly I'd seen some stuff with Black Midi. Like I knew their drummer was absolutely insane.
Yeah, Morgan Simpson, he's
Yeah,
great.
Morgan. There we go. I was gonna say Malcolm. Yeah, Morgan. He's like insane. He's like won like Young Drummer of the Year awards before. I forgot what year.
2014, yeah.
2014. And I mean he's just an absolute unit. And I mean everyone in
Mm.
the band is a great musician, but he just really shines
Yeah.
all throughout this album. Um, so I knew instrumentally it was like gonna be really interesting, but definitely the vibes created by the lyrics and like the tone of stuff was definitely a lot more in depth, and like there's more to kind of explore and look at there than I thought going into it,
Hmm.
I think
which I really enjoyed.
I think with Morgan, I think it's interesting because like I read an interview back in, I must have been like December at the time when I read it, but it was just him talking about some of the drummers that have influenced him, and it was a real
Yeah.
mix of like I mean he talked about I think Keith Moon, he talked about like
Mhm.
you know, your more contemporary rock drummers, but he also mentioned a bunch of jazz drummers as well. And that
Hmm.
really speaks
Yeah.
to kind of the influences of the band as a whole. Like they've got these more rock influenced things in them, but they are these like music school educated kids who understand the fundamentals of, like, if you listen back to Schlagenheim, more math rock stuff, more jazz rock stuff, and they've implemented that throughout. Whilst like this is the album where they became a sound all their own, because you listen to Schlagenheim and it's like their influences are pretty much on their sleeve. Listen to Cavalcade and it's getting there, and then this feels like, oh, this is now Black Midi. Like this is unmistakably them. You play anything else and it's like, this is what Black Midi sounds like. This isn't what Black Midi sounds like if they're trying to sound like another band. This is them, and I'm really interested to see
Yeah.
where they go forward with that now that they've combined all their influences, they've stirred the pot together, and this is what came out. Like they talked about when Cavalcade came out, um, we were able to get this album out pretty quick, but then we just started on the next album, and I can't wait to show you guys what we're doing next. I think that was in an interview with Fantano. They were like, "Yeah, I can't wait to
Oh.
show you guys what we're up to next because obviously we can't play live right now. We just started working on the next album, and they dedicated all their time to this album, and
Hmm.
it is their best album. So I'm really interested to see if on their next album, because they won't have as much time dedicated to it, if it will be as good or if they've just nailed down that formula now."
Yeah. I'm really interested too. That would be really neat to see either if they kind of stay in this area or if they go in a new direction with their sound. I think that would be really interesting.
Mm.
Yeah,
'Cause,
I don't know what to expect because it's like
Mm-mm.
it's kind of like they're like plasma, like they just got this completely unpredictable movement pattern, right? They're just throwing off ions and whatnot, and you don't really know what they're gonna do next because
yeah.
like the kind of glow up, right? Like the pokey evolution of like Schlagenheim Cavalcade to Hellfire. It was like such like a rapid transition. But yeah, these guys definitely are like, I don't know, like they seem like a generational kind of band for what they're doing, right?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I'm really amazed by them because they have managed to just, yeah, pioneer this new kind of prog jazz rock, math rock, and they've just kind of fused them all together into the point where, like, when you try and describe their genre, you're left using my least favorite word, avant-garde.
Mhm.
Um, this is like, what does that even mean? It's just, oh yeah, we are what we are.
Yeah.
it's
It's like
it's
the word you try to describe the undescribable at the time,
yeah.
you know?
Yeah, I just I hate describing things as avant-garde. Like describe things as a genre fusion, sure, but avant-garde is just, this sounds vaguely like unlike things I've heard before and breaks conventions in ways I wasn't expecting. Therefore, this is the genre it goes in. And I was like,
Yeah,
that feels
it's so
lazy.
broad. Yeah.
Yeah, but I know, Willow, like you, I feel like this is pretty different than the stuff you normally listen to. Um,
Mhm.
because like obviously Humphead, with an album you've suggested before with like Naked City, with like the loud bombast and jazz influences, you can kind
Hmm.
of, you can maybe see a through line to where you'd enjoy this. But with Smoski, I'm just interested to see like how this landed with you.
Yeah. Well, I had heard some of the stuff from Schlagenheim before. And knew I liked it. So it's kind of I was coming at it with that in mind. So I came at this from definitely like the area of enjoying post punk music and like um like lately been listening to like a lot of King of Four and stuff, and so coming into this, I was kind of um coming at it from that view, and it was really interesting. There's a lot of stuff about it that I still felt was like harkened back to that feeling of like the earlier stuff and other post punk stuff with stuff like the guitar tone. Um, for sure, that kind of really in your face, like really trebly guitar tone that just really
Mm,
needles in and just cuts from um the bass and just kind of just hits you in the face.
yeah.
Um, I really liked it, and then just the whole they really do a lot of the quiet, loud, quiet, loud, quiet, loud. Um, which a lot of post punk stuff did too, and then stuff in the '90s like Pixies. Um, there's a bunch of stuff all over this album that's just it's like from all over the place, all kinds of different genres.
Yeah.
Um,
Like I said, it feels
and
like
yeah,
a kind of melting pot. Yeah.
yeah, so it was actually pretty easy to for me to like get in like um I mean with Sugar Zoo it's like I mean that starts with the it's all slow and then the drums kick in or I mean everything kicks in. It just there's sounds everywhere. It just
Oh
going
yeah.
fast,
The bombast
loud.
throughout the album. It's loud, pounding, aggressive. Yeah.
Yeah, and
One of the things I kind of noted continuing from Cavalcade is like you listen to like John 50, and I feel like the sound of that song from Cavalcade is really kind of the thesis statement for the rest of Hellfire. Is that loud,
yeah.
aggressive, kind of the shrill chords every so often, the repetitive like pounding, with this really strong performance by Jordy Greep sitting behind it, and that
Mhm.
really is what Hellfire became from start to finish.
Yeah, I agree. Um so yeah, just going through the album it was pretty like going through listening, it didn't feel like, oh, I don't know about this. Like I was pretty hooked in from when I put the album on. Like just going through it just kept me engaged the whole time. A bunch of really interesting different little shifts in tempo and like uh time like signature nonsense. Um
The math
but it
rock
didn't
nerd
feel
shit. Let's
yeah,
go.
cuz that it like I agree a bit with Humphead. Like I have a negative disposition towards what I think of as like prog, like progressive metal, like proggy rock stuff from like just I always think of like the most annoying archetype.
See, when
I
when I
guess
think
of
of
I
like
think of
prog,
like Spinal Tap, you know.
yeah, I think of like the worst thing, and it's like
see when I think of prog, I think of Pink Floyd.
Okay.
yeah,
I consider them prog too, but I guess because when I say prog, I guess I'm just like implicitly and putting a little bit of stank on it. Which
yeah,
I guess that that
exactly.
was the thing that this album kind of helped me kind of reflect on. Like, okay, what do I mean by, like prog, right? Like, okay, well, there's a lot of different things that can be grouped into prog. This album could be called prog. Dark Side of the Moon is,
Yeah.
is prog, but they're completely different beasts, so I kind of had to look at what it was that I didn't really care for. And it
Hmm.
was basically just like the pretentiousness and long-windedness that's kind of associated
Hmm.
with prog stuff. But
Yeah.
I didn't, and yeah, it's stuff like that, and like being needlessly like theatrical, or like just basically bowing too much to like dead kind of like classical composition, like stuff like that. And I
Right.
didn't
Yeah.
really find that much on Hellfire. So,
Hmm.
um, so it has that going for it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It kind of reminds me with some of how I feel about a lot of math rock. Like I really like, I'm gonna sound like a hipster asshole, but it's like I really like a lot of the old, like early 2000s, like 90s math rock, like Hella, for example. I really like
Hmm.
that type of stuff because it's just a whole, like it's really similar to like noise
Is that
music or
the
something. It's
drummer
just
from
all
Death
over the place.
Grips?
Yeah,
Yes.
Yeah.
Zach Hill. Yeah.
Zach Hill,
Yeah.
yeah. Um, and there's like no pretentiousness at all. It's like his drums are like all of it's like broken as shit. Like it's all they're like in a basement with like 30 people. It's like
Yeah.
The
there's none
tech,
of that
yeah.
pretentiousness,
It's
and
not
it's
like the technique itself is the thing that's supposed to be like make you go wow, you know. It's what
Yeah.
they
yeah,
do with that virtuosity, you know.
yeah,
Like why I always get like pissed off about like people like sucking off like Eddie Van Halen. It's like he's
Yeah.
like unquestionably very talented and skilled at performing on the electric guitar,
yeah.
but I people hype up like like the Eruption solo,
But
and
what
it's
do
like
you
yeah I
mean?
get
Dragon Force is the best band ever
Yeah,
because
I
they
know the
play
more
guitar
BPM
notes,
is so
really
high,
fast.
it's so
more
many
notes,
notes,
better
16,
person.
yeah,
That's
Yeah.
what I've
more
always learned.
notes, more worthy of
You
respect.
it's
Yeah,
it's the Mozart thing. It's when you listen to Dragon Force, it's too many notes.
Yeah, but
but
like this kind of reminds me with like prog. It's like the like in the realm of prog music, this is like Hellfire is like the Hella to like Polyphia with like a math rock. Like I
okay,
do
yeah,
not like Polyphia. It just feels so like, oh, I'm have this time chain. Oh, I go to 1624. It's like, okay, cool.
The
Like
kind of people that listen to Tool, is that what you're getting at?
yeah, exactly. Tool is like on one part, and then like Black Midi is on like the complete opposite. Like
yeah, like Black Midi is not asking us to like
yeah,
just be like, look, guys, we put the Fibonacci sequence in or some shit. It's
yeah.
like
Like they
it's
don't.
engaging in itself. It doesn't need to rely on
Yeah.
it, even though it might, use,
Yeah,
kind of prog flair.
I think it
yeah,
is
and
more
there's
focused on like the performance and like it being
hmm
fun, it being
Right, right,
interesting,
right.
yeah, than it being
yeah,
like, "Ooh, we're so good." Like I love this album because of it sounds really interesting and there's a lot of elements throughout, but there are cohesive elements that come back. Like I mentioned, those
hmm
shrill, aggressive chords representing that kind of like fires of hell, the scariness of it. And so, like for example, when you go to like a song like 27 Questions, and you've got it's all a fairly normal song throughout, but then when he's like, you see the fires of hell arrive at the end, and he's getting dragged to hell. Suddenly, those shrill chords come back. It happens in Dangerous
hmm
Liaisons when the devil appears, they come back. Um, like it comes in waves and it understands when to hit those notes, and I really enjoy that because it's using the sounds that are a through line throughout the album to have a theme attached to that specific kind of sound. Um,
yeah,
Mhm.
is like the way they represent hell is this scary, confusing, Lovecraftian aggressiveness of like this otherness, this strange thing that you can't quite make sense of. And that's
yeah,
how they choose to utilize their their musicality and the changing of timestamps and things like that is to represent that otherness. And I love that. I love that throughout this album. Like the race is about to begin is a wild epic from start to finish.
Mhm.
oh
With
yeah,
I can't even tell you what it's about most of the time. There's something about a guy fucking a horse in there. There's something about a
yeah,
guy killing his neighbor and stuffing him in the walls of a shack and then say, "What shack? I don't remember any shack." Like but that's the song part of it with Jordy Greep's amazing performance, but musically you understand that it's representing this scariness, this hellfire, this somebody's done something evil and will burn for it theme that's going throughout.
hmm
And I love that about the album because it's thematically it ties it all together in a way that's not overbearing and like oh yeah, I get it. That's what they're doing. That's the theme. They have to drag it back to the theme. It just fits.
Yeah, because yeah, like I kind of only now that you talk about it do I really go like, oh yeah, like that's a thing that was just kind of there, like
Like it's at the end of the
subconsciously, I
defense
guess.
as well. Like,
Yeah, and
in
it's
spite of the
like,
guy lying to himself about, oh, I'm fine, nothing I've ever done is bad, the chords arrive at the end going, no, you're evil, you're gonna burn.
yeah, like they do a really good job of like making things just sound a certain way and giving you a feeling and not really even noticing.
Mm.
I guess at least in my case, I didn't notice that like while listening, but then hearing you bring it up, I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, like that did happen.
Mm.
Like they do a really good job of like I don't know. I guess I that's another thing that feels similar to a lot of like post punk stuff to me. Like listening to this album, I don't feel like they really care what I think about it, which is something I really appreciate because it's like that's where I get a bit lost with some of the prog stuff. It feels so like, look at me, oh, look what I'm doing. Oh, arpeggios, like, and it's like this isn't any of that. Like they had
Yeah.
a plan, a wild one that I still don't fully know, but they
The
were
boys
like,
sat
no,
down
we're
and went,
doing this.
okay,
Yeah,
Gosh darn
today
the
it,
the
boys,
plan
we
is
got one.
simple.
they did. Yeah, they cooked up something because they wanted to, and I think that's great.
Mm. Yeah, the thing that ties the album so well together for me is just Jordy Group's storytelling and how good he is at it. Like my favorite songs in
Hmm.
the album are The Defense and Sugar Zoo for that reason.
Yeah.
Sugar Zoo's amazing. Like the bombast of this big boxing fight, and everybody's super excited for it, and you get the thematics, like you get the atmosphere perfectly encapsulated, and they use it to tell this story about this guy desperate for attention from the tabloids, so he kills one of the boxers with a gun, and it slows down the tempo after he shoots him to be like everything's happening in slow motion. You're imagining him as he's been shot slowly falling to the ground, like
Mm.
because he's just been shot
Hmm.
in the back. It's not like he's shot him and then everything's happening in normal time. They slow down the song. You're imagining him falling in slow motion. You're imagining everything happening super slowly as the entire crowd goes silent after hearing this gunshot. And then a moment
Hmm.
later, the crowd erupts again into cheers and the song speeds back up again. And it's just that is so excellently delivered as a story through that. And I adore that song for it.
Yeah, it's really great at like putting you in a space. Like a few times just all over that one, but specifically like the defense. I just got very similar vibes to like with how it sounds one and just the vibes from like a Frank Sinatra song or something. It's like, oh, you're in the big city, but like but not in a good way.
He's
Like
got like the
you're
strings.
you're
Yeah.
in the big, yeah, but like this is like you're in the big city, but you're like broke and everything's horrible and then you're on fire
Yeah.
too.
Like
And then it's like like it's evil Frank Sinatra.
I think the way that they do that musically is really interesting as well because like they have this big a brothel is a business no different than a bank. As safe and
Yeah.
formal and sanitary as they're playing these strings and it's like rising strings like kind of carrying him off into the sky, and then those
Hmm.
aggressive chords come back is like, no, I'm going to go to heaven, I've made a happy place for these women. No, fuck you, you're going to hell.
Yeah, it's like, oh well, if I didn't open this, they'd be gutted in the street or what? Like
They'd probably
that's
be
some
in the
insane
street,
shit.
who knows. And he's
Yeah.
yeah. He's just trying to convince himself more than anything. It's yeah.
Mhm.
And then Eat Men Eat is great. Like it's that's even
Yeah.
Picton doing the storytelling, and I still feel like it comes across really well.
Yeah.
Yeah, Eat
And
Many was definitely one of my more choice songs on the album that like I really
mm,
thought was like especially I don't know evocative, you know, like because I just imagine like all these sailors just like basically tripping on like the chemical precursor to LSD, like moldy bread and shit, you know, and they've got that the rye fucking infection that is like what LSD is derived from. Do you know about this?
I didn't actually.
oh,
Yeah, because
yeah, no, I forgot about
that's how
that.
they make well that's how you can make LSD. You get there's this fungus that grows on rye called ergot and you it's got a
Oh.
compound in it, ergotamine, and it was this whole thing back in like the medieval ages. They were just like eating just like bread made from um, moldy rye, and it was inducing like hallucinogenic effects and like acid, but also it was like really deadly. They would like shit themselves to death. So I
Oh
imagine
no.
all of that happened because this is a very psychedelic album too, with how
Yeah.
much they play around with texture and timbre and
Oh, you're gonna bring it
all the
back. Okay,
effects.
okay, you're gonna try and
I'm
bring
bringing
it
it back. I
back.
didn't want.
Yeah,
I wasn't
you
just
brought
looking
it
to
No,
back.
add
no,
to it.
I
Okay.
was about to go deeper. I'm saying that reminds me of like from Fallout 2, where you can find out that you can actually derive jet from the fumes from prom and shit.
Oh
And
god.
that's where jet comes from. And then you can get a 12-year-old boy who is an evil Reddit drug atheist to join your party and stop him from getting stabbed to death, which he ultimately does if you don't help him. Uh,
I would like to add the lore for those who don't know is that this is not the first time you've brought this up today.
of look, okay. Look, okay, but the 12-year-old Reddit drug atheist from Fallout 2, who is the most evil motherfucker, is one of my favorite characters in fiction, okay? I'm not gonna lie.
Oh, that sounds sick. Yeah, this Reddit child sounds great.
He's so ugly as well. I don't know why they make him that ugly. Why is he that ugly? I cannot explain. None of the other characters in the game ever look that ugly.
They changed the whole art style just to make this one kid ugly as shit.
They just really hated this kid. This
This
young
hate
Sheldon
on.
ass kid, yeah. With his white button up.
Oh god.
Yeah, he's like the son of a rich guy as well, yeah.
Oh yuck. Ew.
uh, I've seen some really good voice acting clips from like Fallout 1 and 2 posted on
Yeah.
Twitter.
I love oh the one I saw recently was the guy from the Enclave fairly late into Fallout 2, where he's just like, yeah, we're here to secure the president, and your character's never heard of the
Yeah, yeah,
president.
yeah.
It's like, the president?
President?
Yeah, the
Yeah.
president of the fucking United States. What the fuck are you talking about? I should beat your ass for asking. It's such a he delivers it so well. I can't even. But like, yeah, I love those games.
So that's why I like Eat Many.
Yeah, yeah.
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 Um, how do we get on that?
Psychedelic album, sure. Let's go back to that. But yeah,
Okay.
the
Yeah.
rye. You
Oh
know,
The
yeah, the rye
rye.
bread.
yeah.
So all the rye bread explanation was just so I could get like you in the kind of headspace of like what I was imagining in that album,
Yeah,
like
yeah,
all the
yeah.
rotten food, giving them its like dirty psychedelic, you know, effects and all that, and they're just like he's talking about like his chest is bubbling, you know, and I'm like, so
Mm,
this is just like fucking like they're on the verge of death, you know. Um, and it's like a pirate ship, you know,
yeah.
just plunging into hell or whatever. Um, yeah, just a like we've been saying, it's just a great bit of storytelling, instrumentally, lyrically. Um, it's like that for a lot of songs. So I don't know, were there any like you know, did you find any standout tracks on the album Willow? Did you?
Yeah, I really liked I mean, we talked about Sugar Zoo. That one definitely is one of the top ones. I really like Welcome to Hell. That might
Hmm.
be my very favorite one. Um, because it did a really good job just painting this story of just like the like
Private
going to
Tristan
war.
Bongo.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's like going to like just what battalion, like getting ready to go to the war, and it's just like just this commander just letting him loose on his town, and just the awful shit that's happening.
Yeah, like I'm thinking of like those scenes in Pirates of the Caribbean where they land on like Tortuga, one of the islands like that.
Yeah,
And like it's all this scummy den of evil where everybody's going to bars and beating up people and getting in fights and stuff.
yeah, like
Yeah.
they're all fighting, they're like having sex and drinking, and it's like
Mm.
there's all this stuff, and it's like it just painted this like Jesus, like it's a crazy vision, and it's like just the sound on that with the guitars, just da-na-na-na-da-na-na, and just with the real
Wow,
choppy
wow, wow.
tone. It's like,
Ba-da-boom.
yeah, it's just I just really love that one. Um, and then it's just interesting. It's like every song throughout the album is kind of like a different person or a different group, like going to hell, pretty much,
I think
which I think is
the
really interesting.
I think the one I like about Welcome to Hell is just like it's a one line thing, but like he's berating the private for being like upset about something. He goes, "Well, if it wasn't for you, it would have been some Eastern disease or cholera." As like it's a
Yeah.
one line thing, but he's gonna like he implies that Tristan Bongo accidentally killed someone,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mhm.
like you assume it was like he accidentally killed a prostitute or something. He goes, "Oh well, if it wasn't you, it would have been some Eastern disease. Fuck it." And then when he's still upset about it, he's like, "What are you sniveling about? I'm kicking you out. Fuck you."
Yeah, it's just this insane character
Yeah.
that's like, and it's just, it has like just such an unsettling, like you never feel very like safe in like what's happening musically.
Mm. It's a
Like
very
you never get
unsettling
like a
album. Yeah.
da na 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 na. It's like it's not like a safe. It's just like da na na da na na. Like you always feel like on edge,
It's hard
kind
to
of.
predict what's coming next. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's so unsettling.
I think that's
And
kind of the
then
nature of hell too,
Yeah.
right?
yeah,
Like it's all just like you're saying, it's all just chaotic and it's jarring, and
because
it's
then
basically they're spreading hellfire over this album.
Mm.
Yeah, it's very
yeah,
fitting.
and then like the end of the song, it just it turns into like a hardcore song for like
Yeah,
30 seconds, and it's like uh, it's just like, oh hell yeah, like this is right up my alley.
I guess the one real respite from that we haven't talked about is like Still,
Mm-hmm.
the
Hmm.
more slow pace ballad song delivered by Cameron Picton, which I think he does really well. Like
Yeah.
considering this is your like secondary vocalist, he kind of reminds me of a lot of like indie rock singers I heard in like the 2000s.
Mm-hmm.
Um, well, at least in the UK, I can say. It reminds me a lot of that, but he still does extremely well on it. It's a great kind of longing for a lost love kind of thing.
Yeah.
Um, it's an entirely tonally different, and I can't quite place it in the album. It feels
Mm-hmm.
completely out of place, and then it cuts to the uh, you're listening to Radio Rock. That was the Orange Tree Boys. Which I looked it up to see if that was a reference to something. It's actually a fake band that consists entirely of the members of Black Midi that is apparently meant to be from, I think, Florida. And the band no longer exists because a public statement said, quote unquote, they all died in a plane crash.
That's kind of fitting because it's like it's this kind of one like shining like clear skies like island of
Yeah,
like hope and like kind of comfort, I guess, in the middle of the album.
yeah.
So that
Them
them
saying it
just
was
all
by
being
someone
fucking dead
else.
in a plane.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's by someone. They're all dead. It's like, oh shit. Like, right.
Yeah.
It would be.
It's
That
a
would
different
be the
band
case.
and they're all dead. Yeah.
Yeah. So it still kind of ends up being that like these people still die. Like, and it's like, yeah, it's just but it's really interesting that one. It just it's right in the, I mean, right after Welcome to Hell, and then you're
Mm,
just thrown into this like a love ballad.
yeah. God, I can't. I don't think words can express enough how much I enjoy Jordy Creep on this album. Like, he's such a
Yeah.
character. He's such a funny guy, and I mean, like, you you can see on your screen right now that he's joining us in spirit in the form of breakdancing Mario, his avatar from Twitter.com.
Avatar. I like the use of
Yeah, that
not
His
profile picture.
homunculus.
Avatar.
his golem he
Horcrux.
summoned to act on his behalf.
Golem.
Like I love how they I love how he represents himself so consistently of like this weirdo who you can't understand, and he buys into it, and he's just such a weird poster where he'll say like, hey, has anybody found this Chilean pan flute band that I was trying to find? If anybody's got this specific vinyl, can you bring it to the show? Thank you so much. And then, and then we'll just be tweeting yelling about something political by just calling somebody a fuck stick 3 seconds later.
Yeah.
He's just such a
Oh.
weird character, and it shows on the album. He's just so good at playing these different parts and being like, even his accent, I can't place it. Like,
Yeah.
if you're not from the UK, it's like, oh, maybe he's just a weird form of British. But like, no,
Yeah,
he's just
exactly.
he's got a really weird voice that he throws all over the place. Like, when I first heard him, I was like, is he like part Danish or something? Is he like, cause I can hear the London in it, but like, is he like part from like somewhere else entirely? And it's just, no, that's just who he is. That's his
No,
character.
he's fucking pan-ethnic. Like he just like he'll be singing like a Spaniard, and I'm like,
Yeah.
this guy
He's like
so
rolling the R's
theatrical.
constantly. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Jordy Greep sounds like the name. Jordy Greep sings like how a guy named Jordy Greep would sing,
Yeah. Yeah.
like
True.
idiosyncratically, I guess, because I've never heard a name like Jordy Greep before.
Mm. So, like, I think we've heaped praise on every member of the band. I love all three of them, and like,
Mm.
I'm hoping to see them live at some point. I know they've said that they could travel with as much of a 13 piece as part of what they've been planning. It's just like, God, that sounds
Yeah.
insane. Like, imagine listening to Welcome to Hell or Sugar Zoo or The Race is About to Begin as a 13 piece.
Mm.
Yeah, got
That's,
all the
oh my
horns, all
God,
the
yeah.
piano,
Somebody playing the
keyboard.
Rickenbacker. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah, imagine putting out the help call for that. Just like a it's so long they need to tape like three pieces of paper together. Like we need a glockenspielist, someone who can play the French horn,
yeah.
a marimba player. We need somebody who can play the hurdy-gurdy,
Yeah, it's like
specifically the 15th century version, not that cheap 16th century shit. Just like this very extensive list of instruments.
me and Willa recently watched a clip of Florence and the Machine performing "Dog Days Are Over" from like a 10-year-old live performance. And we were both just sitting there watching it, and I just thought to myself, like, imagine you get called in to be like a harp player on a Glastonbury stage. Like, that is the highest you will ever reach. Like, that is the biggest stage you could ever reach playing the harp. And you're on
Yeah,
there playing Dog Days Are Over with Florence and the Machine at Glastonbury. That sounds insane.
Yeah, like the life of a professional harp player's gotta be like bless their souls, but just not the most like insane surreal
It's
experience.
like, there's a guy there that's like everybody knows is like the king of the jungle when it comes to the triangle. It's like there's not that many opportunities
Oh yeah,
though.
the guy from Yeah by Usher. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, like
He showed
that.
up, he did his thing, and he left, and he made an impact, and then he never
Yeah.
did anything
It's
again.
it's the cowbell SNL sketch. I really want them to remake that, but it's the triangle guy on Yeah. I think it really has potential. Like,
That
if they
would
just
be
do
really
that
cool.
again, but they get Usher on. Because like
Yeah.
Usher's trying to make a comeback in his career, right? That seems like the
Yeah.
perfect time to remake that sketch.
Yeah, that would be cute.
We're
Yeah,
doing their
he
job.
poses as Will
We need
Ferrell.
to
They
send
need
them
to pay
payroll.
us. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey,
They do.
if you hear this, it's a good idea. Pay me.
Yes, and me.
Fly me out there. Give me a visa.
I'd
Oh, a
rather
work
he's
visa to stay in the US? Wow, that would be so convenient for me right now.
Wow, that would.
Yeah, like the way that they would need to include so many different instruments for live performances makes me really interested because like even as a four piece it would be interesting, but like as many pieces as they could want to put in, I think they can do some amazing stuff. Like I only really, I guess it was something I'd never considered before. It was a real blind spot for me until like middle of last year when I was talking about Nirvana and like realizing that when I looked through the album members, like Pat Smear is never recording with them on in the studio.
Mhm.
Mhm.
And I was like, why is that? Isn't he like he's a part of the band in my head? So why is he not ever on any of the albums? He was never on any of the albums. He is for Foo Fighters, however, but that's a different story.
Mhm.
And it's looking into it further, it's just that they recorded without him and then they took him strictly to do the live performances because they needed an extra guitarist to play live.
Yeah.
And at that point, I really considered like, oh, are bands actually a lot smaller and then they just write their songs, but they write too much for them to play, so they need extra people to come in? I'd never even considered it before.
Right.
Oh. Yeah, because like a lot of the, or most of it, the Nirvana stuff is like the guitars are like double tracked and stuff, and yeah, it's
Yeah.
like it's physically can't like you need more
Yeah, you
people
need
to
an extra
actually play
guitarist.
live.
Yeah. But I just never considered the idea that like you write music that you physically can't play and then you need an extra person to come in and play it with you. Like I consider that
Yeah.
obviously for solo artists. Like yeah,
Mhm.
like I know that like Tyler the Creator isn't going out and like playing all the instruments on stage at the same time. Like some
Yeah.
madman. I could imagine him trying to play a one man band bit though. That sounds hilarious. Him with like the
That
cymbals
does.
on the inside of his knees.
Oh yeah.
Like I can imagine it, but like yeah, I got that they weren't doing that, but I guess I'd never really considered the idea that a band is less than the amount they need. Like I always
Mhm.
viewed bands really utilitarianly of like, oh, we need an extra guitarist. That guy's in the band now. It's not, oh, he just tours
Yeah.
with us. So like yeah, the idea that they'd need that many pieces to go live is something that now I understand, but like a year ago I would have been just blown away by.
Yeah.
God, yeah, it's an album I love a lot. I've got a lot of enjoyment out of listening to it. I'm really excited for whatever they do next, and I'm hoping to be able to see them live. Yeah.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, I gotta
Yeah, me
look
too.
into. Actually, yeah, I guess we can do them a favor by shouting out they have a fucking tour planned already. Black Midi tour.
Yeah,
Because
I've
yeah,
seen like
after this, I definitely want to go see them. Like,
yeah,
really
because I've
bad.
seen a bunch of their live performances, and they just look so fun.
Yeah,
They're
he
so
delivers
wild.
it so weirdly live. It reminds me of Frank Black, where he just delivers everything so much different when he's actually performing live.
Yeah. You know, it's great. I love hearing the different little ways things are delivered each time. It's great.
Mm. That was always something that whenever I looked up the live versions of Pixies songs, I was like, I don't like this because it's different than the one I normally listen to. That's so weird.
Yeah.
Because Frank Black just refuses to be consistent. And
Yeah.
listening to Jordy Group live, it kind of it's reminiscent of that. He just like does whatever he feels like. Like we listened to what was it, a live version of BM, and
Yeah.
he just like delivered it as if they were lines being said during sex the entire
Yeah.
time.
Like
And she
he
moves with
sounded like a
purpose.
gooner.
He's like deep breathing.
Yeah.
Which one is that? because I remember watching a live performance where it was at the Mercury Awards.
I think that was the one I was listening
Yeah, it
to.
was
Yeah,
BBC. It was like live television recording. Yeah.
Yeah, and they're like on like a nice stage and shit.
yeah, because
Yeah, that was really
Yeah.
Schlagenheim,
cool.
yeah,
And
Schlagenheim was
it,
nominated for the Mercury Prize. Yeah, which is the
mhm.
pretty prestigious award for best British album of the year.
Yeah, and that was yeah, the Mercury Awards, and that was a really cool performance too
Hmm.
because we got to just see like a noise band playing in front of
Yeah.
like a suit and tie audience, you know, playing like fucking
Yeah.
no
Yeah,
wave, you
and
know.
as he says the line, and they
Um,
find different ways to suck themselves off to
right,
that crowd
Yeah.
of people.
Like
I was like, oh yeah, because
yeah, and
that's kind of the way you get that they're not that pretentious bullshit group of people. They make fun
yeah,
of those kind of people. Like they,
yeah,
yeah,
yeah, they don't want to be that. They
they're
move
just
with a
weird, yeah.
purpose.
they do.
And whoa, what a magnificent purpose! Magnificent
Oh, what a
purpose it is.
purpose.
Oh, what a purpose!
The purpose. You're gonna hit the.
He delivers it like he's Brendan Gleeson, yeah. Yeah, like I kind of got flashbacks when I saw the Mercury Awards as well to just Blur versus Oasis, them arguing about who gets the Mercury Prize for the year.
Oh
They made
god.
like a diss track for Oasis because of
What
it.
a bunch of babies. Oh
Yeah.
god.
Yeah, would you guys both recommend the album then?
Oh hell yeah.
I would, yeah,
Absolutely.
I'm glad
It's
you
a
came around on it, but yeah.
yeah, and
yeah.
I still gotta listen to it because it's still kind of it's giving, you know, it's still giving.
It's giving.
um, and yeah, I definitely want to just keep listening to the album because I just kind of
Yeah.
find more bits about it that I end up liking a lot. So yeah, it's definitely a thumbs up for me.
Yep. Definitely recommend.
Yeah, I feel like it's the way I would want to describe it is kind of like quantum music. It's different every time you listen to it. Every time it's observed,
Mm.
it's something a little bit different than last time.
Yeah. No, 100% I agree.
So yeah, I really enjoy it. Of course, I'd recommend it. And yeah. So Humphead, it's actually your recommendation for what we're doing next time. Have you had the time to think about what we're doing?
I thought about there's a few different albums. I kept expanding the pool and shrinking it as I was going along. I gotta figure because my mind is still stuck. We were talking about it before. Obviously, I had an album in mind that I was really felt really strongly about, and I completely forgot it, and now I'm trying to like figure it out. But I have a few things in mind, so if anything, I can choose something by the end of the night to give you guys a chance to listen
Okay,
to it.
okay. So
Okay.
yeah, next time we'll be listening to Mainstream Sellout by Machine Gun Kelly.
uh,
we'll, we'll see. We'll see. I'll post it up on our community page what we're listening to next week in case anybody wants to listen along. But for now, that's been the Preamp podcast. Thank you all for listening, and good night.
Give us a like, and you'll become a lesbian.
Yes, that's how it works. We're the only podcast that does that.
True.
Good night.